What's up, YouTube? I want to do a discussion today. Today I want to talk about yo-yo lube. Alright, so yo-yo lubricant. This is sort of a controversial topic because some people just want to play their bearings dry. Other people swear by lube. I'm kind of a lube swearer by guy. But I do try to follow the rule that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't do anything to a bearing that is currently in a yo-yo working that doesn't have any problems. That being said, I think that lubrication is a huge and great part of yo-yo maintenance. So let's talk about the kinds of lube first and foremost. So if you play responsive yo-yos, if you do a lot of looping, you're going to use thick lube. Now thick lube is just thicker viscosity. It looks goopier. It's thicker. You're going to want to use that in your looping yo-yos. And any yo-yo you want to be responsive, so if it's a modern responsive metal or anything like that, any yo-yo you want to be responsive, thick lube is going to be what you're going to want to use. Now, you don't necessarily need to buy thick lube if you've got like 3-in-1 oil or WD-40 or anything like that, that is sort of just a thicker lubricant. You don't need to actually buy a specific thick lube because those other lubricants are thick enough that it will actually make the bearing roll slower, and you won't need the thick lube for that. Vaseline works as well. So, thick lube, that's what that's for, responsive. The next type of lube is your sort of standard, what is this, low viscosity, but just, your bearing and taper lubricant, your unresponsive lube. It's not thick, it's very thin lube. For that stuff, I prefer the one-drop lube. This is actually lubricant. I like the one-drop lubricant. It's thin enough, doesn't gum up your bearing. However, with this lube, you're only really going to want to use it after you have thoroughly cleaned your bearing. By thoroughly cleaned, I mean like take off the bearing shields, drop it in some type of solution that gets rid of stuff. I like 100% pure acetone. A lot of people will use alcohol or paint thinner, the clear paint thinner, not the white stuff, the clear paint thinner. I like 100% acetone because it's literally like 85 cents or something, and you get this much. So I actually just had to buy some new. After you clean it, though, I also like to blow the bearings clean with just canned air, like compressed air that you can use to like dust your computer and stuff. You can buy, actually, I need to buy an electric one. You like plug it in and it'll do it too, and they're like $20. And so instead of like paying whatever, $4 or $5 a can at Walmart, I should just drop the $25 for the plug-in blow one. Anyway, so that's what this is for. After you have thoroughly cleaned out everything in the bearing. Now, when you first put this in, the bearing's not going to be 100% unresponsive. This lube breaks down. So, whenever you put lubrication in like this, you're going to want to play that yo-yo a lot right away. Don't lube the yo-yo and put it away because it's just going to collect dust in the bearing and it's going to stay responsive and you're going to have to clean it again. This is it, lubricant. You're going to use as little as humanly possible as well, like half a drop. Just enough to kind of coat the inside, and then you're going to want to throw it as hard as you can, and I like to do, thanks to my friend Ben Bullos, I like to do gyroscopic flops. It puts pressure on the bearing, helps the lubrication break down, and coat the balls the way it's supposed to. So I think that's probably, and that's how you are always instructed to use this. If you use the lube wrong, you're going to make your bearing more responsive, and you're not going to like that, and maybe that's going to be why you hate bearing lube. If you use it right, you get a dead silent bearing that'll spin a long time, and you probably won't have to do much maintenance to it after that, really for a long time, unless you get it dirty somehow. I have cats, as you can see, so my bearings get dirty sometimes because they get cat hair in them. But if you clean them up and then you lube it, go through the process, it's fine, and I've never had a bearing go bad on me ever. However, that being said, if I don't clean the bearing first, if I haven't had to clean the bearing in the yo-yo first, I won't lube it because it doesn't need it. So clean it, then lube it. Don't just lube it. You're going to mess up. You're going to have to clean it then afterwards and re-lube it, and that's what this is for. The other thing that I like too is Monkey Finger does, this is Lubing Conditioner actually, Gorillus lubricus. So I use this a lot too now actually, because if you're using something like 100% acetone, so bearings themselves have protectants on them from the factory. A lot of times that's what breaks down when you hear that shriek, is that like lubrication or protectant or whatever just from the factory, and that's just to protect it from corrosion and rust and all that stuff. Acetone will remove all of that. Literally will remove everything. It's just going to be metal. The Lubing Conditioner actually sort of will reapply that as well and kind of keep it from rusting. I really like this in yo-yos, or in bearings, particularly in yo-yos that get carried a lot, that that get thrown around a lot, or that I leave at the office or whatever, because those are yo-yos that are just sort of going to be exposed to elements and temperature changes and things like that a lot. So I like this stuff for that, because I don't want bearings to rust on me, and I feel like this really does a good job both cleaning, lubing and maintaining the bearing as well on that. So I like this as well. You got to use very, very little of this. I pour it into my tiny bearing, or my tiny lube applicator. This is for like guns and stuff. You can get them on Amazon. I pour it into there, and I just get the littlest, tiniest drop. It helps because too much of this really will. I mean, you'll just have to clean it again because it'll make your bearing responsive. It'll take forever to break down. But I do really like this for bearings that are going to have to suffer through harsher conditions, especially after I've removed all of their protectants with acetone. The newest thing, and I posted it online because I've been using this a lot lately, that I've seen, is this dark matter bearing lube. Now this isn't lube so much as it seems to me to be sort of an alcohol and graphite mixture. So graphite is like your pencil lead, and what graphite does is it's basically tiny little shards of metal, and that mixed with the alcohol. Now if you leave this open, this needs to be like these is sort of, whatever. They're not going to dry out. It's petroleum-based lubricant, or at least, man-made, like a petroleum substitute of some sort. It's a lubricant. It's oil. This is alcohol and graphite, I think. So you could smell like if you open it up and smell it, it's like, oh, that's alcohol. That's like pure rubbing alcohol, and graphite. So this is different. Yes, you can use it on after you clean a bearing, absolutely. What I like to use this on, though, is brand new bearings. As soon as they start making that shrieky sound, because the initial stuff's starting to break, the initial cleaner stuff, lubricant, whatever, is starting to break down, just the tiniest bit, a drop. Make sure you shake it up and keep it shut so that it doesn't dry out. If it dries out, you're going to kind of get like this chunky black stuff. That's just the dried out and the fibers and stuff from the graphite that has just started to dry out with the alcohol. So you're going to want to make sure you keep the lid on it and kind of keep it in like a cool, warm place that's not going to let it just dry out and have the alcohol evaporate, because alcohol evaporates very, very quickly, incredibly quickly. So if you leave this open, you're just going to have graphite in the bottom of a thing, and you don't want to just pour graphite into your bearing. That's going to lock it up. That's, I think, the problems that I've seen. Now, I have used this on pretty much every new yo-yo that's come in to keep the bearings running smooth and nice, and it's been wonderful. For months, literally for months. Every yo-yo you've seen me review since I got this pretty much has probably had a drop or two of this put in it. And it works fantastically. That being said, you're going to want to play the yo-yo after you do that. What this is going to do is sort of more or less polish the inside of the bearing and kind of break down any imperfections in the ball bearings, or as the coatings and the things that are there to protect start to break down a little bit, it's going to sort of help break those down as well, and kind of, like I said, polish and not clean, because you're going to clean the yo-yo bearing with actually solvents and things, but it's just going to sort of polish it. Now, you don't want to use a lot, because too much graphite in there is going to lock up the bearing. You're going to want to use just a drop, maybe two, and the tiniest drops possible. Luckily, it's got a really good applicator, tiny little applicator. That applicator's worked great for me. And after you do it, you're going to want to play the crap out of that yo-yo just like you would with, you know, putting regular lube in there to make sure you're breaking down the graphite and everything else that's in there. You're going to want to gyroscopic flop it. You're going to want to throw it hard. Don't just lube it and spin it a couple times, throw it a couple times, and stick it back in your case. You don't want to do that. You need to, if you are going to take the time to put lubricant or something in your bearing, you need to then play that yo-yo for the next 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that you are breaking everything down and getting it as evenly distributed in there as humanly possible and letting it do its thing. Because if you just put the drop in and put it away, you're going to have to clean that bearing the next time you get it out. And with this stuff, if you just put the drop in and put it away and you just let the graphite just sit and dry out and let the alcohol evaporate and the graphite just dries out there, that might lock up your bearing. So that might be the problem that people have had with this. Anytime you lube anything, a yo-yo bearing, you need to play it for like the next 15 to 20 minutes. Hard throws, gyroscopic flops. You might wreck a string doing this. I mean, give the bearing as much pressure as you possibly can. That's how you're going to break the lube down. That's how you're going to let it do its job. And then you're going to get dead smooth, dead silent bearings. Like so I did this one last night. And actually I did it right before I posted the picture. Hear that? Dead silent. Super smooth. Spinning eternally. Now, gyroscopic flop this thing for a half hour and I threw it hard and basically wrecked a string doing it. But you know what? This bearing's not going to give me any trouble between now and ever. I've done this with a dozen other yo-yos, maybe not a dozen, maybe half a dozen. And those bearings are the smoothest, silentest bearings in any yo-yos. If you comparing them afterwards, because I've got a ton of yo-yos, comparing the ones that I've done that to with the dark matter versus like just the ones that I have never been cleaned ever, night and day difference. Smooth, silent playing, no screeching, no nothing. Versus, you know, maybe rattle sounds, maybe screeching, maybe just that weird 8-ball sound. For me, lube is the way. After you clean a bearing. Or if it's a brand new bearing, like I said, I really like a drop of this stuff because once it starts to make that, help, my things are breaking down, screech sound, just a little bit. And that should remove that sound, but you have to play it. You have to play through it. You can't just lube it and put it away. So I understand why people maybe don't like to lube their bearings. Maybe they lube them and put them away. Whatever it is, I think it's good, especially for somebody who carries a lot of different yo-yos all the time and who plays the yo-yo a lot, just wandering around as sort of a like nervous habit. For me, this really helps maintain everything, and I barely have to ever clean, really, unless, like I said, cat hair gets into it. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Hope we had a good discussion here. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Bearing lube? Yes, no? Remember, though, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's fine. The bearing is spinning. Don't worry about lubing it. Don't worry about doing anything to it. It's probably also already got protective stuff in there. After you clean it, that's when you want to talk about lubing it. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers to you. I'll see you next time.